Good morning to everyone. It's not going to be a presentation about yet another testbed, but I'm going to use what has been said before. So this is somehow the outcome of decades of supporting and providing testbed access. And I would like maybe to highlight what is really original in Slices and why this is a catalyst for cooperation. We've been working a lot with the colleagues here in the US in the past, and we try to put also a lot of emphasis on EU-US collaboration. So what is in Slices? Why is it very different? Because it has been built and designed as a scientific instrument. So what does it mean in practice? Basically, when you see those figures, you see on the left-hand side the square kilometer array. That's a big instrument for astronomers. And on the right-hand side, it's very simple, it's a collider. And what is interesting in there is that they have been built because the relevant scientific community convinced the stakeholder that they have basically to invest a lot to support the research in that domain. So that's a community initiative. So this happened in Europe, and the main difference is that usually when we receive funding in Europe, we receive this funding from what we call Pillar 2, which is collaborative research. Basically, we'll give you, let's say, a couple, 5+ million euro for 3 years to build something. Scientific instruments are supported by what we call Pillar 1, meaning that you move from what we call mid-scale infrastructure, like for instance power is a mid-scale infrastructure. Mid-scale doesn't mean the scale in distance, it means the scale in dollars. So basically from a couple of €100 million to a collider costs 5 billion. So Slices didn't receive 5 billion so far, but basically we are entitled to collect funding until that level if we are successful. So that's the first point. It's really important, and I will mostly focus on that part, because if you look at other fields of research, you see that 90% of scientific papers published in those fields basically are using advanced scientific instruments in order to provide evidence. And this is something which is really, really poorly achieved in our field. And I think it's getting worse and worse because of machine learning and AI. So successfully, we entered into the roadmap, so the SP roadmap. Again, this is not something dedicated to computer science. It's related to all fields of science. So you have to compete with astronomers, high energy physics, human sciences, and so on. So we entered in the roadmap in 2021. We were the first in computer science to succeed to enter into this type of roadmap for large-scale scientific instruments. So at the moment, we have 16 member states involved and committed, so meaning that we have the political support, so the engagement of the member states from 12 countries. And basically, all in all, we have about 100 organizations involved in the development of Slices. All this has a tremendous impact, and this is usually the slide that I prefer to present, because you see that the roadmap that we have goes to 2040. So it is the first test platform ever that is sustainable. And I know the situation in the US, I know how complex it is to maintain the facility, because basically every 2 to 5 years you have to explain to your funding agency that you need more funding to sustain your facility, although it is a new facility. So, and this is inherited from a collider, because if you want to build a collider, it will take you 10 years just to build it. And then you can start to operate for another 20 years, and then you have to decommission it. So the value is that Slices basically fit in there. We are not in a hurry. We are not even yet in operation. So we are in the design phase, and basically we receive funding to support the design phase. We are going to enter into pre-operation this October. So this October basically, and especially for beyond 5G type of facilities, we have something pretty similar to what we have seen as presented by others here. So the way it works, because it's quite complex with respect to funding, is that Slices, in basically 2 years from now, will have its own legal entity. So meaning that we have an office now, which is located in Paris. The office is hosted, let's say, basically those who are providing shared services. And then, of course, the facility itself is deployed in many countries. So for instance, we're very happy that now we have Ireland. So Connect is now involved, and of course we expect to benefit from part of the facility that Connect is providing. And this is why it has a lot of value, because we can scale, of course, because we can accommodate resources from different locations, but we have a huge diversity. So for instance, PSNC, our member who is coordinating the effort in Poland, has a very interesting new quantum networking facility that eventually we can expect to open to the community. So we can benefit from what is new and what is more advanced in the country and make it available to the community. So I'm not going to insist on what type of device we have here and there. You can go to the website, you'll see. But what is really, really important, I don't know if it will, but is that Slices, because it's a scientific instrument, and because most of the research in other fields have to provide evidence using the scientific instruments, we are supposed to act as a repository for open research data. We cannot enter into the S3 roadmap if you cannot convince the stakeholder that you are going to be able to reproduce the research, which we don't do. Honestly, I mean, take most of the papers that are published in the field, could be radio, could be machine learning, you don't have access to data, you don't have access to the training methods. And then you assume that this is evidence. Often we cannot reproduce it. So Slice's objective, and I believe that's the point that we have to leverage eventually in CGXL, is that we have to provide a repository for open research data. Of course, when I say open research data, it's open research artifacts. It is software, models, training, data that the community is ready to share. Otherwise, we'll be lagging behind what is done by industry, as an example. So, again, to understand, there are a lot of, or a few, but there are not so many scientific research instruments in Europe, where you don't have any infrastructure. Actually, you can only access through what we call virtual access. So virtual access, for instance, in social sciences, you only access data, don't access any physical infrastructure. And this is also what we have to offer in Slices, because there is a lot of value in the data that actually can be shared before you go into the physical infrastructure. So I'll skip the methodology, but basically speaking, it's intent-based. So we look at scientific questions, then we translate them into a framework. We call it the blueprint. And then the blueprint is supposed to be used as a benchmark for the research community. The blueprint is very open. So for the moment, we have a 5G or beyond 5G blueprint. And we are going to have soon an edge cloud continuum blueprint. And we're also working on the intelligent sensing and communication blueprint. I'll skip that part. Yeah, just 1 minute. So, I'm going to insist on 2 points. First, we have to interoperate with what we call EOS, Open European Science Cloud, which is providing open research data for all fields of research. So we already can use this as a long-term archiving facility. And last, we provide a framework for reproducibility. It's called POS. We have been testing it a lot, actually, with Chameleon, with Cloud Lab. It was possible to use POS as a mechanism, basically, to reproduce experiments that have been documented either in Chameleon or in Cloud Lab. And we use POS as the experimental control plane of an experiment. And today, what we can do is run an experiment using the Slices 5G blueprint. We can control the experiment, then we collect automatically the data, So basically, we store the metadata in the metadata registry system, and then we make it available for the community. So basically, you can go search for what you need, and then you can replay if you want. And just to close, it's really important for us to develop the cooperation. And the last achievement that we have, it was announced last week, is that Colosseum now is hosting a decisive 5G blueprint so that we can also use the resources that Colosseum is providing. Thank you.